Hare Krishna, Namaste. In the previous recording, we learned the hierarchy of senses, mind, Buddhi and Atma. We also learned some basics about mind. We also slightly touched on the question why a lot of focus is given to mind. That is because mind is a tool to think. If the thoughts are good, then our life becomes good. If our thoughts are bad, our life becomes bad. So the thinking happens in the mind. The same mind behaves like a friend at times and as enemies in different times. What makes the same mind to be friend or to be enemy is when we have mind which is attached to material things. Then it is our enemy. If our mind is detached to the material things, then it is our friend. When our mind is attached to the lotus feet of the Lord, then it's our friend. When our mind is detached from the lotus feet of the Lord, then it's our enemy. So everything revolves around our thinking process, which is created by our mind. That is why all the sages emphasizes, including Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita in many places, instructs us to control our mind. Even Arjuna asks the same question. Mind is flickering, uncontrollable. One can control a heavy wind, but controlling mind seemed to be impossible. But Krishna said, no, it is difficult, but it is not impossible, it is possible. This mind is a tool for thinking. Mind is where the expectations takes place. Mind is where the sadness takes place. Mind is where the fear takes place. Mind is where anger takes place. As we can see, these are all different forms of same mind. One point to mention, just because the mind thinks, it's a tool to think, it doesn't mean mind has jnana, intelligence. The mind does not have any intelligence. So to control the mind which doesn't have intelligence, jnana, it has to be done by one who has the intelligence, the Buddhi. So only Buddhi can control the mind, instruct the mind. But interestingly, even Buddhi doesn't have Buddhi. We did mention this in our previous recording. Therefore, Buddhi also cannot control the mind directly. It has to be one who possesses the Buddhi, the jnana, and that has to be a conscious entity. Therefore, it is the Atma which possesses the Buddhi can control the mind. When the mind is controlled by the Buddhi of Atma, then the senses also comes under control. This is how it all works. This is the basic flow that we all must know. It is not the Buddhi independently try to control the mind, because the Buddhi doesn't have that capacity. It is only the Atma which has the Buddhi, another tool, uses that Buddhi to control the mind. But for ease purpose, we often say the Buddhi controls the mind. And this is what Krishna explains in the 3rd chapter, 42nd sloka. Now let's get deeper understanding of this through an example. Say, I am doing a window shopping in a mall. As I was walking through different shops in the mall, I see a mobile shop, a cell phone shop. I see a cell phone. I get first-hand knowledge of seeing this phone, which is latest and greatest. It is a smartphone which touch screen. It's foldable. it's quite popular in the market. That first stage is where I gain knowledge of something which I was not aware before. Then, after finishing my window shopping for a couple of hours, I return home, now ready to go to bed. At that time, that jnana that I gained in the mall, in that cell phone shop, comes to my thought, and I start contemplating on that particular cell phone, its shape, its features, its colors, etc. Then start thinking, how nice will that be if it's in my hand? I can flip-flop the phone in front of my friends and show them I have the latest one. With these thoughts, that first stage of jnana, then it takes the second form called ichcha, desire. First it was jnana, and that jnana now becomes ichcha. I develop a desire. I develop an attachment towards that cell phone. Now with that desire, the third stage comes, which called prayatana, effort. I try to get that cell phone to fulfill my desire. Now we understand there are three stages: jnana, ichcha, prayatana. A level of maturity, it depends on which stage we fall into. Getting knowledge, one cannot stop. The knowledge keeps coming, but we can try to stop the second stage, which is desire. Now I learnt about the cell phone. I understand and appreciate the cell phone. I can just put a full stop right there, rather than getting to develop a desire towards that phone. Well, even if I develop a desire which I'm unable to stop, but one can surely try to put a full stop at the third stage, which is prayatana, to get that object for sure. A person who thinks I should not be doing this, it is not worth of getting that phone. Moreover, I really don't need that phone. I already have one which solves my purpose. So one tries to control the prayatana stage, the effort stage. It doesn't take an effort to obtain a particular object, in this case the cell phone, but he had the desire. So the second person is one who tries to control the desire even before it can get to the effort. So he controls the desire. And a person is said to be yogi on a top level when none of these unwanted things comes into his buddhi. Buddhi is the place where he gains knowledge. Therefore, the buddhi doesn't even tap on any of these material things because it's really not necessary for Atma. Such people are the greatest yogi, where their buddhi doesn't even try to grasp any unwanted things, anything that becomes an obstacle for their yoga, to perfect their yoga. And that which makes firm decision is called buddhi. We already learned that the mind doesn't have the capacity to make decisions. It can only think and think. That's all. We think mind is stronger, but stronger than mind is buddhi. If our buddhi is stronger, then the mind can easily be controlled. Because whatever the buddhi fixes its firmness, that's the direction the mind goes or thinks, and that thought directs the senses. For example, mind thinks of some incident, past incident that happened, and feels morose, feels sad. Therefore, it reduces our activities. A person who is sad doesn't feel like doing any activities. He likes to sit on the easy chair called sad and then keep rocking, not moving forward anywhere. But the Buddhi's function is to decide whether to feel sad about that past incident or alternatively just move on with the life. That decision part comes from Buddhi, not from Manas. As the Buddhi sets its firmness, the mind then continues under that instruction of Buddhi. Therefore, Buddhi relates to knowledge and intelligence, and mind relates to thoughts, thinking. They both have specific role and purpose. They both are not one and the same. They are two separate substances. Like how we saw, mind goes through changes of fear, anger, sadness, etc. There are 8 angas for Buddhi. They are Sushrusha, Shravanam, Grahanam, Dharanam, Uha, Apoha, Arthavijnanam, Tattvajnanam. Sushrusha means desire to listen. Shravanam is to listen. The first one is just having a desire to listen. The second one is actually to listen. Grahanam, to know through what has been heard, listened. Knowing something through the process of Shravanam, listening. Dharanam, that which is known through listening is being retained. Dharanam. Uha, to infer that it may be like that. When we retain and then we start contemplating or infer, that may be like this. That is Uha. Apoha means it may not be like this. Whatever we learned about something, it may not be like that. That is Apoha. Arthavijnanam is ability to understand the correct meaning of the words that we heard. Tattvajnanam is knowing the actual truth. These are the 8 limbs of Buddhi. This has nothing to do with thinking process, and the mind has nothing to do with these 8 process, that of Buddhi. Now let's see how mind thinks, and then we'll see how Buddhi functions with the thought of the mind. Mind being an instrument to think, say it thinks of pastimes of the Lord, qualities of the Lord, forms of the Lord. It tries to fix on any of these. Then what Buddhi does is to help the mind to get fixed on a particular thought, because the mind can think positive as well as negative. As we already said, it could be a friend or it could be an enemy. Say the mind thinks on the pastimes of the Lord, where Krishna lifted the Govardhan mountain. The same mind also start thinking, is it even possible that the child Krishna could carry such a huge mountain on his left hand pinky finger? It's the same mind which thinks 2 different ways. When the mind thinks the auspicious qualities of the Lord, like Lord is very compassionate, very merciful, very tolerant, etc. The same mind may also start thinking, if the Lord is all merciful, compassionate, all-knowing, omnipotent, then why am I suffering? Why there are so many sufferings in the world? Why there are so many differences between people? Why can't He be good and make everyone happy in this world? You see, it's the same mind which thinks 2 different ways. When the mind thinks on the beautiful form of the Lord, when we are in front of the deities in the temple, the same mind which was appreciating the beauty of the Lord now may think, what is this deity going to know? It is just a matter, material, made of some material. It doesn't really matter whether I offer to him or don't. He won't eat it anyway. How can the Supreme Brahman, Supreme Lord, be in this limited form, in a deity form? How can that God and this deity be the same? Again, it's a mind which plays two roles, games. When the mind is thinking to do some devotional service, say on a Sunday evening at the temple, the same mind may think, why am I wasting my time here? Better I go back home. I shouldn't have even come to the program. My evening are getting spoiled. I have to go to work tomorrow. It's been a busy weekend. I shouldn't be coming to the Sunday programs anymore, because Sunday is the only time where I get some time off for me. Every single day are so busy. So why even we have to do some service here? So you can see how the mind thinks. When the mind starts thinking in a negative way, then one will not get their desired result, even if they try to do such activities. That effort will give no fruits. Now let's see the role of Buddhi. When the mind gets to these two opposing thoughts, whether to do this or whether to do that, or it may also have multiple thoughts, at that time the Buddhi comes into the picture and makes the decision, firm decision on the choices that mind has, which then the mind fixes its thoughts on the recommended decision given by the Buddhi. When the Buddhi comes into the picture, at that time, if that Buddhi is dominated by Sattva Guna, then the outcome will be favorable to the self, the Atma. If it is dominated by Rajoguna, then it settles in passionate thoughts, which will be harmful to Atma. If the Buddhi is dominated by Tamoguna, then the thoughts will lead into further disaster. These are all beautifully explained by Krishna in the 18th chapter, 30th sloka, 31st sloka and 32nd sloka. When do we say Buddhi to be Sattvic? When do we say Buddhi to be Rajasic? And when do we say Buddhi to be Tamasic? We will not go in details about those things. Those who are interested, please refer to those slokas, or you can hear to those recordings. To keep it simple, let's assume that the Buddhi is at the given moment now dominated by Sattva Guna, and let's see how Buddhi works with the mind when it is predominantly in Sattva Guna. Just let's take the same examples that we saw. The mind thinks on the pastimes of the Lord. How beautiful it is that Krishna lifted the Govardhan hill, and mind now also thinks, how is it even possible that Krishna could carry such a huge mountain? This is what mind thinks in two different ways. At that time, Buddhi tells the Manas, why not? When the Lord can carry the entire creation, why not this mountain? Buddhi tells the mind, when the Lord can show the entire creation to his mother Yashoda in his little lotus mouth, why can't he lift it? Therefore, my dear mind, Krishna can do anything and everything just with his sankalpa. Fix your mind up on his pastimes. Enjoy them, have faith in them, and get purified. Krishna himself says, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode. So what is your problem, my dear friend? Mind. When the mind thinks the auspicious qualities of the Lord like compassion, mercy, etc. are great, and the same mind also thinks If the Lord is all merciful, all compassionate, all knowing, omnipotent, then why there are so many people suffering in the world? Why do we see differences? At that time, Buddhi jumps in, tells the mind, the Lord is equal to everyone. He is not envy of anyone. He is not partial to anyone. Samoham sarva bhuteshu. He himself confirms this in Bhagavad Gita. What is your problem, my dear mind? Why are you doubting? His compassionate nature, His merciful nature. The differences that we see in the world is simply because of the individual karmas. And the Lord is not cause of that. He is only cause to create this platform for those Atmas to get rid of their karma, to develop bhakti and come to His abode and get engaged in His service for eternity. Therefore, surely the Lord is merciful, compassionate, all-knowing, omnipotent, all-loving. Therefore, O mind, fix yourself in the auspicious qualities of the Lord without having any doubts. When the mind is thinking on the beautiful form of the Lord in the temple, the same mind may say it is just matter made of metal or made of wood or made of stone. How can that Supreme Lord be in this matter? Buddhi tells the mind, the Lord can be anywhere and everywhere. He can take any form. By telling He cannot be in the deity form, you are restricting and limiting the power of Lord. Understand the Lord is present in the spiritual world. Then He expands into Vyuga form, Vasudeva, Shankarshana and Aniruddha. And the same Lord descends into this world to perform His pastimes as Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Narasimha and so forth. And the Lord takes the form of Antaryami, Paramatma within everyone's heart. Since the Lord in the spiritual world is unreachable, we cannot reach the spiritual world, at least now. Similarly, the Vyuga are also unreachable. All the avatars happened in the past, and the Paramatma within our heart is most difficult to approach and reach, even though He is within us. Therefore, that Supreme Lord mercifully descended into the world in the form of deities. For you, O mind, to fix up on His lotus feet. He becomes reachable, accessible, servable. In this way, the Buddhi makes its case clear and firm, and the mind, without a second thought, start thinking the beautiful form of the Lord without any doubts. Let's see one more example. When the mind is thinking to do some devotional service on a Sunday evening at the temple, the same mind may also think, what am I doing here? Why am I wasting my time? At that time, Buddhi jumps in and says, you are chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Don't you? You've been chanting this for quite few years now, every day, so many times. Oh mind, do you know the meaning of what you're chanting in first place? Let me tell you. O Lord, O energy of the Lord, please engage me in your service. This is what you've been chanting every time, every day. But you're failing to do or take up service. It is quite contradictory. How is that, my dear mind? You can do this. You being an hypocrite. Know that devotional service is the only dharma of all the living entities. That is what we are all aspiring to do when we attain the abode of the Lord. So stop being lazy. Stop finding reasons to avoid services. Be active. Engage yourself in devotional service with full enthusiasm. Take the association of those who are actively, enthusiastically performing services. In this way, you will get purified, and also you will please the Lord. In this way, Buddhi clears the doubts of the mind and makes it to be fixed in Krishna consciousness. And that is why Krishna in the 12th chapter, 8th verse said, just fix your mind upon me. Mayeva mana adishtva, Mayi buddhim niveshaya, and engage all your intelligence, the buddhi, in me. It is the same buddhi which is also known as jnana. The difference is, it is called buddhi when one gets a factual knowledge of tattva and purushartha. Tattva means that absolute truth, the truth about Atma, truth about Paramatma, truth about Prakriti. Purushartha is what is that one want to attain. That is Purushartha. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, these are all. So let me repeat. It is called Buddhi when one gets a factual knowledge of Tattva and Purushartha. The same is called Jnana when one gets the factual knowledge of action, karma, that needs to be performed towards the Tattva and Purushartha. Now let's go one step further. After starting the karma with the proper jnana, when one stays composed and fixed, determined until karya siddhi, until one completes the taken action to its complete state, even in spite of any obstacles, that is said to be dhriti. Buddhi is a factual knowledge. Jnana is a factual knowledge of the action that needs to be performed. Dhriti is being determined to get the work completed. So, both manas and buddhi must be fixed firmly in the Lord. I hope this helps to understand the difference between mind and buddhi and their functions and the reason for their hierarchy as explained by Krishna. Now, there could be possible question about buddhi. Is our buddhi influenced by our karmas? Please contemplate on this question until we meet tomorrow to find the answer. Thank you. Hare Krishna.